Welcome back to the Pylon Cam podcast / YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube. We got a good episode for you today. We're going to go through, obviously, our most telling games of the week, the latest news stories, and at the end, we're going to go through the current playoff picture and my predicted playoff picture. So if you're interested for that, stick around. We are on episode 11. I said I was going to do something special for episode 10, but because of life circumstances, starting a new job, haven't been able to do that yet, so we'll do it eventually, maybe for episode 15. But let's go ahead and get into it. If you haven't checked it out on our channel, we started a new segment called Mock Mondays, where we do a mock draft every Monday until the draft, which is going on now. The last mock draft we got was the most viewed video on my channel, so if you haven't had a chance, go check that out. New mock coming out this Monday, being I don't know what day that is, but today's the 11th. And I think the mocks are cool. The first one was pretty raw. I didn't do too much research on the prospects. But this week I've done a ton of research. This mock's going to be way more interesting. A lot more going on. There's potentially some more quarterbacks involved. So if your team is down and out, go ahead and check out the mock draft. For all of those fans of teams that are done for 2021, there's always next year. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and get into our first story of the week, which is Cam Newton to the Panthers equals ? I don't really know what the Panthers are expecting from this move. There's $4.5 million guaranteed, $10 million total if all plays according to plan. I think the best part of this move is for 2022 if they decide to keep him for the next year. Because I really don't think with how Cam Newton was playing on the Panthers and how he was beat out by Mac Jones, I don't know what Cam Newton really does to this offense or how he elevates it. His arm is shot. He can't throw down the field. And yeah, he has Christian McCaffrey back. But what did Cam Newton do in his last season on the Panthers? I'm not sure what their record was off the top of my head. But I don't think it was anything special. And I don't think right now Cam Newton is going to elevate this team to be something special. I think that this move is kind of cool for Cam Newton to, have his final send-off as a Panther, to be, brought into Panther heaven as they literally end his career probably after this season. I just don't get it. I don't even think if, Sam Darnold is poop, but I don't think that at the beginning of the year, if Cam Newton was in Panthers camp, he would have beat out Sam Darnold. They were very in love with Sam Darnold at the beginning of this year. And for the first 3 weeks, they thought he was the franchise guy. But I just don't know how Cam Newton elevates this offense. I'm not sure what this does. I think if this was Cam Newton going to the Saints, there's an argument to be made that he's definitely the best quarterback they would have on their roster, being with Jameis out for the rest of the year. Trevor Siemian is, whatever. He won a game. He beat the Bucs. I'm not trying to take anything away from him. But again, if you've listened to this channel, if you listen to these podcasts, you know that I'm a firm believer in if there's no tape, anything is possible. I think that we're going to talk about the Titans later on, but I think that attributes a lot to the Titans' win over the Rams. But again, going back to Cam Newton and the Panthers, I'm not sure what to make of this. I really don't, because it's a lot of money. They're freeing up, I think, $1.5 million in cap space. But aside from that, I'm not sure what this does. And why I started this segment off by saying I think this is really good for 2022 is because one of the prospects I've been mocking to the Panthers, if he were to fall that far, is Malik Willis. I think Malik Willis, if he had a year to sit under Cam Newton, and they get it, inevitably I think the Panthers are going to get a new head coach or offensive coordinator. I think Matt Rule is just very much so done with the NFL. I think he wants to go back to college. But I think that this move really is good for next year. I don't think it makes much sense during this season. I don't know how many more wins Cam Newton will get you. Especially in that offense. He worked for the Patriots because the Patriots are such a run-centric offense. But when they got Mac Jones, who's able to push the ball down the field a little bit further and be more efficient, they're not asking Mac Jones to throw 60-yard bombs down the field. He's just efficient as they come. And Cam Newton wasn't that, even with his leash, so to speak. I don't really know. Again, I don't know what what Cam Newton is going to bring to this offense. They got Christian McCaffrey back, but the Panthers' schedule, I don't know it off the top of my head, but I don't think Cam Newton makes any of those games that they were questioning with Sam Darnold. I don't think he moves any of them into the win column. I don't think any of those L's that they were foreseeing are now potential W's. I could be completely wrong about this, but if you're a Panthers fan and you're listening, please explain to me why this was a good signing or why you like this signing, or explain to me why you hate this signing. Because I don't know the ins and outs of the Panthers. I'm not a Panthers fan. I do love the Panthers. I think they're a really cool franchise. And since I moved to North Carolina, I kind of have more of an affiliation with them. But other than that, I don't know why everybody is so excited about this move. But that's all we're going to talk about in the first story. The second story we have is the Titanic Titans ? The Titans just had a huge win over Matt Stafford and the Rams on Sunday night. And I think why this was such a dominant win is two reasons. Their defense came to play. Their defense was their pass rush particularly was very effective in that game. But I think this is more of a game where, yes, I do subscribe to the notion that Mike Vrabel is one of the best coaches in the NFL. I think he's made that pretty clear. I don't think there's much dispute over that. However, I think that when the Rams defensively were game planning for this game, they didn't know what to expect. And the weird thing is, A.J. Brown wasn't even that involved in this game. It came from the other receivers, and honestly, neither was Julio Jones. I don't really know where all of their yards came from. I didn't look at the breakdown, which I really should have, but I really do think I think the Titans are going to not free fall, but start to lose a ton of games. Luckily, because we're going to talk about the Titans later on at the end of the episode when we go through the playoff picture, this is a huge win for the Titans because this was their last tough game on their schedule. From here on out, they have a bunch of in-divisional games, and they have we'll talk about it later, but they have one of the easiest schedules for the rest of the season. I think they're the bottom 25 of strength of schedule, so that's really playing in the Titans' favor. Right now, they're the 1 seed of the AFC, sitting at 7-2, I believe, or 7-1. No, they're 7-2 because the Cardinals are the only one-loss team left in the NFL. But I don't believe in the Titans yet. I didn't believe in them when Derrick Henry got hurt. I still don't believe in them now. I think that the Rams had a bad game. I think that every good team is allowed one bad game every once in a while, especially if you're 7-1 going into that game. And the Rams are now 7-2, sitting at the 5 seed because of the Cardinals. I just think that the Titans are not nearly as good as perceived. I see everybody have them as the power ranked as the 1 or 2 team. My power rankings will come out later today, by the way. I've been pretty behind because, work. But I don't know, man. I'm not a believer in the Titans yet. I think Ryan Tannehill is having still a pretty terrible year. He's bouncing back, which is good, but I could just see this Titans team being a one game playoff team. I think unless their defense could play as well as they did for the rest of the season and into the playoffs, which they definitely could. If you could do, I do believe if you do it against the Rams, you could do it against anybody because the Rams have one of the most electrifying offenses in the NFL. But I think if their defense keeps playing that well, yes, they will be very much so competitive. Plus, Derrick Henry could be back by playoffs. And I think their game plan for the rest of the season, their strategy is to, if Derrick Henry is ready week 15, 16, they're gonna sit him. I don't think they want any risk of injury. I think they would rather those 2 weeks get him healthy and get into the playoffs with a healthy Derrick Henry. But I want to wrap this story up with I just don't think the Titans are nearly as good as they're perceived. I think they are a top 10 team, definitely with Derrick Henry. Or a top 5 team with Derrick Henry. I don't know if they're a top 10 team without Derrick Henry. I can't confidently say it yet. I want to see them play some more. They have a very easy schedule. I'm not sure who their next opponent is, but let's look it up while we're talking about the Titans. And, of course, Derrick Henry is on all my fantasy teams, but that's neither here nor there. They play New Orleans, who does have a very good defense. It's going to be a tough game for A.J. Brown. But then they play the Texans, They play the Patriots, which will be a very good game. I think they could definitely lose that game. Then they go into a bye. Then they have Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, the 49ers, Miami, and Houston. So I can see why they have one of the easiest schedules left in the NFL. I don't know, man. I'm just not a believer in them yet. If you are a Titans fan and you do believe in them and you want to explain why, then sure, I'll listen to you. I could be wrong. I could be wrong about a lot of stuff. I'm always down to be wrong so that I can learn from it and be better in the future. But I don't know. It was a very convincing win over the Rams, but I just think that nobody knew what to expect with the Titans, Sean McVay and that whole squad included, and they paid the price for not being prepared. So that's my take on the Titans. I don't know what to make of them yet. The next story is Jimmy Garoppolo done. I think that the 49ers are now 3-5. And you look around the league, and I just realized a key is missing from my keyboard. That's not good. I don't know where that is. I don't know how that could have happened. But anyway, I think you look around the league, Zach Wilson is playing, Trevor Lawrence is playing, Mac Jones is playing, Justin Fields is playing, even Davis Mills is playing. I subscribed to playing Jimmy Garoppolo so long as you're winning, so long as you're a contender. Now you're done because Russell Wilson's back. The NFC East is wide open. The wildcard team has 4 wins. Everybody else literally has 3 wins, besides the upper echelon and the Saints, who have 5 wins. I think if I'm what's his name, Kyle Shanahan, and I want to kind of, he's on a hot seat, right? He's definitely on a hot seat. I think if I kind of want to ease that heat and kind of get off that seat, I would definitely, first of all, bars. Second of all, I think that, now I'm messing with my camera. I think that if I wanted to kind of cool off that seat, I play Trey Lance. Because if you play Trey Lance, there's no expectations. Your season is done. I think you need to get that kid at least 400 reps, 500 reps before the season's over. Get him ready for next year. Because at the end of the day, Jimmy Garoppolo is not a part of the long-term picture of this franchise. He's not even a picture in this franchise for next season. Being that you invested 3 first-round picks into Trey Lance, I think you have to get him as ready as possible. And it'll be no challenge getting free agents to San Francisco. I don't believe that that'll be a struggle. I think now you need to play Trey Lance, or at least ease him into the offense, get him some sort of reps, and get him ready for next year. Because realistically, the 49ers are done. They just got demolished by Colt McCoy and the DeAndre Hopkins-less Cardinals. So, kind of to my point, again, like when Derrick Henry was playing, of why I thought he should have been the unanimous MVP, is one of the points I made is that if you took Kyler Murray away from the Cardinals, they still are a very good team. They're still a very good team. And Colt McCoy just completed 82% of his passes, more than anybody in the NFL. I don't know how we got onto that, talking about Jimmy Garoppolo. But I think if I'm the 49ers, especially if I'm a 49ers fan, I don't want to see any more Jimmy Garoppolo. I want to be done with him. I want to see the ugly of Trey Lance. I want to see what this kid can be. I want to see what his goods are, his bads. I want to see everything. Because the more tape you have on him, the more ready you can make him for next season. So with that, and I think everybody kind of knows that Trey Lance was a project. Going into the season, he was a project. Going into next season, he's still a project. There wasn't he didn't have too many reps in college, but at what, did he go to like North Dakota State? But I think that you got to move off of Jimmy Garoppolo. You have playmakers. You don't have a first-round pick for the next 3 years. You have Elijah Mitchell, who looks like a stud. Your offensive line is great. Your Deebo Samuel is amazing. Brandon Ayuk is getting more involved in the offense. George Kittle is still there. I think you now need to hunker down, get what Trey needs, and you can only see what Trey needs if you play Trey. More bars. But that's all I want to say about this. We're kind of rolling through these. We got a lot to get through in this episode, so I kind of want to roll through these stories. But the next story I have is Justin Fields the guy. Even prior to this season, subscribed to Justin Fields, like on my personal rankings, as take that for what you will, Justin Fields was my quarterback too. It was Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson. Trey Lance being, like, for this, well, yeah. And the thing with Justin Fields, why I love Justin Fields is his ceiling is Russell Wilson. It is Russell Wilson. And I think that we have kind of been seeing more and more glimpses of that, especially against the Steelers on Monday night. That game, we're going to talk about that game more later, but I think that with what that game tells me about Justin Fields is he doesn't get rattled, and you got to just let him loose. You have to – Matt Nagy's gone, so if you have any love for Chicago or there's fans of Chicago, let them see what Justin Fields is. Open up the playbook. Let him throw the ball deep. Let him make mistakes. Same thing with Trey Lance. But the difference is you're starting Justin Fields. Why are you limiting him while you start him? And this is kind of my take on this. And this is if I was an offensive coordinator or a head coach and I had a young franchise quarterback, I think this is the best approach. And I think that it's worked more often than not with a lot of these young quarterbacks that we are seeing become elite, as in Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson. All of them, their coaches and offensive coordinators played to their strengths. They didn't make them do things that they're not good at because it doesn't make sense for their long-term development. And why I'm saying that talking about Justin Fields is, what does Justin Fields do well? You need to roll the pocket, let him get into space, let him create. You need to let him throw the ball down the field. You have Allen Robinson, who, by the way, is probably top 3 contested catcher in the NFL, top 5. And you need to let him run RPOs, run play action. Why Matt Nagy and the Bears are like, okay, let's play a conservative offense where Justin Fields has to stay in the pocket and throw to the flats, throw to his check down. That's not why you drafted this kid. And, sure, he needs to get good at that eventually, and that is something you need to be good at to be a good quarterback in the NFL. I do agree. But is that stuff hard? Is that hard to coach? No, it's not. That was the big knock on Josh Allen was, yeah, this kid has a bazooka of an arm, but he misses the layups. That's stuff you do in training camp. That's stuff you do in the offseason. Let this kid get better at what he's already good at in game scenarios against teams like the Steelers, against these opponents where they have good secondaries. Let him see what works. I think the Bears are doing a huge disservice to Justin Fields. I think that they're stunting his growth. I mean, we're seeing this with a lot of teams who they potentially have franchise guys, and they're just not they're not putting him in a situation to succeed. I think that could be said for, was Sam Darnold ever given that opportunity? Is Daniel Jones given that opportunity? No, I don't think. I think Adam Gase broke Sam Darnold, and I think that Daniel Jones, who finished last season as the best deep ball passer in the NFL, why the Giants run stick concepts and don't move him out of the pocket, it doesn't make sense. They're not, especially in an evaluation year. Like, Justin Fields is nowhere near an evaluation year, but you don't want to get to the point where, all right, this is our eval year before we even have evaluated it for a year. You know what I mean? If that makes sense, a lot of teams in the NBA, the NFL media is a huge believer now because of Josh Allen in the year 3 jump. You have 3 years and that's it. I don't want Justin Fields to get to the point of all right, we haven't seen anything from you for the first 2 years. Here's your shot. Go get it. That doesn't even make sense. It makes no sense. But that's what I want to talk about with Justin Fields. I think he is a guy. I think he's a really talented quarterback. I think he has all the intangibles, and he's tough as hell. That was the most. I mean, you could literally Google Bears highlights, and you just see Justin Fields getting absolutely clobbered. I mean, hit harder than. I mean, he's under pressure or sacked, I think 6% higher than the next closest quarterback. Close to the 20, it's close to the 20% mark. I just think that this kid, you're missing your second round pick in Tevin Jenkins, or your first round pick. I forgot how many they had. But Tevin Jenkins, unfortunately, couldn't play this year because of a back injury, I think. He had to get back surgery. And this offense is terrible. It is horrible. And that really is the reason why Matt Nagy will not have a job next year. I just think they're going to need to go out, get someone to develop this kid, and, try to go win some games. Nobody's expecting the playoffs, but we want to see, Justin Fields get better. I want to see Justin Fields get better. I think the Jets really screwed up by not taking Justin Fields. But I have a lot of confidence in the Jets front office. I think a lot of people are upset with Joe Douglas so far. I think he's done a great job. I think he's doing everything right. It's not the sexy picks he's making, but he's making all the right picks. He's building from the trenches, which is, if you're in a rebuild, you need to start with the trenches and, get your guy, but get your guy when you know it's your guy. I don't know if I was the GM, I don't think I would have taken Zach Wilson. I get it. He's a project and the sky's the limit, but Justin Fields to me is just a way better athlete. Oh, back to my point about how tough Justin Fields is. If you watch the Ohio State, I don't know if it was Clemson or Alabama. I think it was Alabama. No, it was Clemson. When he got that targeting penalty, when he scrambled, the kid came back into the game and threw 5 touchdowns. I mean, he is tough as nails. He's tough as they come. And I can't say that about Zach Wilson. I can't say that kid is tough as Justin Fields. I can't. But anyway, that are my stories from the week. Those are the games I wanted, the topics of the week I want to talk about. Let's talk about the most telling games of the week. I have 3 this week. We kind of touched on some of the aspects of some of them, so I'm going to try not to talk about those teams as much. But let's talk about the first game, which was, again, the Bears at the Steelers. And we talked a lot about Justin Fields and the Bears. What I didn't mention, and kind of was saving this point, and this is the only point I'm going to make about the Bears in this segment, I think what that tells me is Justin Fields is confident enough to go into a game where they're losing, and if it wasn't the worst officiated game of the season, potentially win that game against Mike Tomlin, Ben Roethlisberger, and that Steelers defense. I think that is something you won't see and I'm not trying to bash Zach Wilson, but I don't think you'll see that from him. I think there's a certain intangibility of Justin Fields of not being able to get rattled versus Zach Wilson, who seems like he would get rattled. He's a very cocky kid, in my opinion, and I think that when he's not playing well, that bothers him. And I think we won't talk about the Jets, but I want to talk about the Steelers for a little bit. So I was very impressed with the Steelers going into this week, being that they're the only team in the NFL that is not averaging 20 points per game and is still over 500. I think Mike Tomlin does not get nearly enough respect. I think that the respect Mike Tomlin gets is very much political. And I think that, we're talking about the game of football. We're talking about, who is elite. When I think of Mike Tomlin, I think of elite. Because that guy has been in the league for as long as I can remember. And the Steelers have never been under 500. And he's gone to 2 Super Bowls, I'm pretty sure. He lost to the Packers, and he beat the Cardinals. I'm not sure if he was the coach when they beat the Cardinals, but I just think that the Steelers, I started this segment off with I'm very confident in the Steelers. I'm very confident was very confident in the Steelers and their defense and in the whole 9 in Mike Tomlin. But now I'm kind of sitting here thinking, okay, you got outplayed and outcoached by Matt Nagy and Mike Tomlin. And Justin Fields, if it weren't for a ref taking it upon himself to hip check a defender and then throw a flag for taunting. That puts you in field goal range, or you keep your drive going, you're in field goal. You get the ball back and you're down 2. Which, with how Justin Fields was playing, you better believe he was going to go down there and get them in field goal range. Because, again, with the intangibility of, the phrase is, do you have ice in your veins? Think of Lamar Jackson. He has ice in his veins. I think Justin Fields has that. I really do think Justin Fields has that. And I do believe that if he were to have one last drive, he would have got them in field goal range. Now, would the kicker have kicked it and made it? Maybe. Would they have scored? Maybe. But I think the point remains the Steelers were a hip check away from losing that game. So, the Steelers right now, if I'm correct, are the 6th seed in the AFC. The AFC is very close. A lot of teams are 5-win. I think every team besides the 1 seed is a 5-win team. The Steelers, to me, I don't see them. We'll talk about the Steelers later on when we talk about the playoff picture, but I don't think they're going to make it. I think that there's a lot of sneakily competitive teams that will outlast the Steelers just because of the Steelers are literally hanging on by a thread. And if they get one injury on that defense, they're done. Obviously, but they are definitely on offense probably the most shallow team in the NFL, especially at running back and quarterback. They have Dwayne Haskins, who I still am I really want to see Dwayne Haskins play on the Steelers. But I don't know, man. I think if anything happens to Big Ben, they're done. I think even if Big Ben plays and they stay healthy, they're still done. They have if I remember correctly, they have a very tough schedule down the stretch. Very tough schedule. Let's talk about the next game, the Cardinals at 49ers. We talked about Trey Lance and what the circumstances now are for the San Francisco 49ers. I think that, the Niners need to just stop competing. Not stop competing to win, but your playoff hopes are done. You just got absolutely slaughtered. Who, if you do make it to the playoffs, this is the team you would see. No, you wouldn't see them. But, potentially. You would see them, and you just got blown up by Colt McCoy and a basically third James Conner and no wide receivers. Because A.J. Green was out with COVID. DeAndre Hopkins is dealing with the ankle injury, I'm pretty sure. So the receiving core was Rondale Moore, Christian Kirk, and Zach Ertz. And they didn't even have Chase Edmonds. They had Eno Benjamin, who had a touchdown run, and James Conner, who went nuclear on them. I think that this speaks to the Cardinals, to my point that I've been making about them for weeks. They are the deepest roster in the NFL, and they are the best roster, not the best roster, but the most talented roster in the NFL by far. I still think the Browns have the best roster besides quarterback. But the Niners, they're done. Like, you just got to stop. You got to stop trying to make the playoffs, see what you have in Trey Lance, and you need to go from there. Because I think that, I don't know, man. I'm very out on Cliff Kingsbury. I don't think he offers the Cardinals anything come playoff times. But now I'm sitting here like, all right, he just had Colt McCoy complete 82% of his passes and outcoach Kyle Shanahan. So, but that also begs the question, is Kyle Shanahan as good of a coach as we thought? Because he has the worst record or win percentage next to, blanking on his name. He was the coach for the Eagles for a little bit. I forget his name. Oh, it's going to kill me. It's on the tip of my tongue. I don't know. I don't remember his name. But besides the Super Bowl run, Cliff Kingsbury, Kyle Shanahan has not done anything. He's not won many games. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I think he's kind of a wishy-washy coach. I think the thing that what Cliff Kingsbury did that I don't think Kyle Shanahan would ever do is Cliff Kingsbury was chewing out Josh Norman, which is probably the coolest thing he's ever done in his life, on the sidelines. And if you watch the video or the clip, you see DeAndre Hopkins behind him getting, like, hyped up. Like, yeah, like, this is my coach. Like, screw you, Josh Norman. Blah, 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 blah. Kyle Shanahan, on the other hand, like, Jimmy Garoppolo didn't play all that well in the playoffs, but also, like, would just be, like, I don't know the right word, passive-aggressive against his players. I think that's what I'm trying to say. And I just think that the Niners got to call it. I think they got to call this. They're 3-5. You have a kid you spent 3 first-round picks on. Go see what you have in him. Get him some tape so he could do some homework in the offseason. But that's all we're going to say about the Cardinals and 49ers. The last game I want to talk about, and probably the game we'll spend the most time on, is the Vikings at Baltimore. Or at the Ravens. Hold on. Need some water. This is what I'm going to say about this game, because I got to talk about both these teams. Let's start with the Ravens. So, I think we could all confidently say that the notion that Lamar Jackson cannot win from behind is dead. I think he has more. The Ravens are having a harder time leading in games than they are winning games from behind. So this is what I kind of think about Lamar Jackson, and I think this is why the Ravens are becoming my favorites to win the Super Bowl. As injured as they are, they have like 16 or 15 players on IR last time I checked, which was like a week ago, so that might have changed. Lamar Jackson always has something that people are critiquing, right? Year one, he needs to throw the ball more. Okay, threw the ball more. Year two, not as accurate. Needs to be more accurate. Comes back, wins the MVP. Year three, oh, well, he doesn't throw the ball enough and he runs too much. He's going to get hurt. Year four, and he doesn't win from behind. Year four, he is throwing more than he ever has in his career, and I think he has 4 come-from-behind victories, against Vikings being 1. They were down 14 points going into the second half. And I think the Vikings are like 82 or something crazy. When leading by 14 points going into the second half, they're like 30-something and 0. I said 80, but that's not right. 30-something and 0. So what the Ravens now say, basically what I'm kind of gathering about the Ravens is they remind me a ton of the 2019 Chiefs, where it didn't matter, like, prime example, AFC Championship or the divisional round. Chiefs against the Texans. Texans go up 24 points. Second half, Chiefs come back and win. Lamar Jackson has now completed more comeback wins this season than in his entire career. They were down 14 points against a very underrated Vikings team. The Vikings just notoriously, they're now known for blowing leads. They're like the baby Atlanta Falcons. I don't think the Ravens do anything poorly enough to where they will not win games in the playoffs. Plus, John Harbaugh is making a very, very, very telling case for Coach of the Year. I think someone who's not talked about enough for Coach of the Year is Sean Payton, but we're not going to talk about him right now. I mean, I don't know what to say about what else to say about the Ravens. I don't know how you could critique the Ravens even. I think they just do everything right, and they have no weakness. Like, sure, their secondary is definitely their biggest weakness, but it's not big enough of a flaw to where they're losing games because of it. Sure, they got absolutely demolished by the Bengals, but like, let's look at what the Bengals, like, again, like I started with the Rams when I was talking about the Titans. Are the Titans legit? Every good team is allowed a bad game. I don't think the Ravens have ever lost like that under John Harbaugh and with Lamar Jackson. That was the first game that has ever happened. And the Bengals went on to lose against the Jets. And who did they just lose to this week? The Browns decimated them. They had this like flip-flop score of their score against the Ravens. So, I mean, you're allowed a bad game. I just think the kryptonite to the Ravens might be the Browns. But I really don't think that they would. I don't know. I don't have any confidence in Baker Mayfield in the playoffs, and I don't have any confidence in Baker Mayfield with a lead. I just don't know, because a lot of these things when you talk about the playoffs, like who matches up well against who, because that's a big factor. Like if the Ravens were to play a team like the Chiefs in the playoffs, they would obliterate them, because the Chiefs are one of the worst, or the Raiders, the worst run defending team in the league. The Ravens would destroy them. But again, if they played the Browns, who are very good at stopping the run and have a good secondary because they're the best roster in the league, it would be a much more challenging game. But because of seeding, they may never have that option. They may never have the opportunity to play the Browns. So I think that the Ravens are in a very good spot. But let's talk about the Vikings. Let's talk about the Ravens. So I started off, I've been doing mock drafts. So if you're interested in next year, check out my mock drafts. But here's what I'm saying with the Vikings. Let me just pull up their standing, because I'm not too sure how many wins they have. They have 3 wins. Okay, they're 3-5. They're not winning the division. The wild card is definitely still in question because everybody has 3 wins in the NFC. At like the most being 5, I think. Besides like the Packers and the Cardinals, obviously. But Mike Zimmer is probably going to get fired at the end of this year. Excuse me. Mike Zimmer is probably going to get fired, right? I think that's pretty obvious, unless something miraculous happens. Kirk Cousins, I was actually watching someone on YouTube Finally, people. I don't know if it's just I don't hear it. I don't get how people are just so convinced that Kirk Cousins is this good quarterback. He does not what's the most important thing unless you're a game manager, if you're a franchise guy? What do you need to do to elevate from game manager to franchise guy? You need to be able to win games. How does Kirk Cousins in his career ever win games? Right? So, for me, I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, Minnesota, not the hottest spot for free agents. They got Dalvin Tomlinson. It was a great signing. But not the hottest spot for free agents. Their cap space is a little crazy right now with how much money they're paying because of Kirk Cousins. They have currently, I don't think Draft Network is updated, so it might be a higher pick. But currently they have the 14th or 15th overall pick. Or 13th. Somewhere in there. Players like Kenny Pickett will be on the board. Desmond Ridder will be on the board. I'm not a Desmond Ridder believer, but Desmond Ridder will be on the board. Malik Willis might be on the board. Carson Strong might be on the board. Sam Howell will be on the board. At what point do you start the rebuild is my question. You have Justin Jefferson, who will be going into his third year. You're going to need to pay him money. You have Dalvin Cook, who I don't know what his contract looks like, but you're going to have him for a while. You need to upgrade your O-line, and you need a new head coach. So what that's telling me is this is your last year to make the playoffs. You're not going to make the playoffs unless you make the wild card. Where are we at with the Vikings? Do they? What I'm struggling to figure out is, do you start the rebuild now? And what that means, do you start selling people for picks? 1. 2, I'm not saying you have to draft a quarterback this year, but you need to address the trenches. You have a very good D-line with Danielle Hunter, Dalvin Tomlinson, all those guys. And the Vikings usually have a good offensive line. Their offensive line is pretty bad this year. I'm not sure who they have injured and whatnot. Are we going into year one under this new head coach, possibly new GM, this new regime? Do the Vikings start the rebuild now? And if you're a Vikings fan and you have an opinion on why you shouldn't start the rebuild and you're listening to this, please comment or tweet at me because I'm so torn. For me, I lean towards blow it up. Just start over because you have a very solid core, right? You have Alexander Madison, who you're not going to have to pay anything, but you can keep him around, who's a very good running back. You have Dalvin Tomlinson for however long his contract is. You have Justin Jefferson, who's very talented young wide receiver. He's going to be like your wide receiver one forever. And you have Kirk Cousins. And what I think is they could take Kenny Pickett and he could spend the next year or two, like the Packers did with Rodgers, with Brett Favre, and just let him sit. Because someone made this comparison, and I actually really agree with it. Kenny Pickett, player comparison, is a more athletic Matt Ryan. And I actually totally agree with that. Kenny Pickett, to me, is slowly becoming QB1. Right now I have Corral. Actually, no, it's Willis, just because of his upside. And then it would be Corral, Pickett. But it's slowly becoming Pickett, Willis, Corral. Or Willis, Pickett, Corral. So the Vikings have a lot of options. I think you start to blow it up. I think you start now. This isn't the strongest quarterback class. That's definitely sure. But you could start the rebuild. You could start to build the team for what, like a lot of teams fail to do this, right? And I think there's an exception every so often. Like it really depends when you start the rebuild. And excuse me. Hold on. I think for certain teams, two things have to line up for you to take a quarterback. You either need to be certain it's your guy, like Justin Herbert. You have to have a team, and you have to have a team that's ready for him, or you start the rebuild. You don't like the quarterback class, so you avoid the quarterback and just address the trenches. To me, that's how you rebuild. The Vikings are in this situation. Do they like the quarterbacks? Maybe not. So address the trenches. Do you like a quarterback enough to take him with your first round pick? Okay. Your team's good enough to groom him for when he's ready to play. So I think the Vikings, it's actually a good option for the Vikings to take a quarterback because I think after this year, you're kind of done. And I think if you start over with a new head coach and a new GM, they're going to want their guy. So that tells me if you do that, he's either going to address the trenches or he's going to be like, this is going to be my guy, and he's going to sit behind Kirk Cousins, which is fine. I just think the Vikings need to start the rebuild. I think they got to stop. And this is what I've seen in the NFL for a few years, is when teams fail miserably and set themselves behind 5 years, they try to do both. And I could definitely see the Vikings try to do both, being that they're going to draft players to win now and they're going to draft players for the future to rebuild. And what that looks like to me is you get Kenny Pickett or insert quarterback here, and you get like, well, they have a good running back. I don't know. I think the Vikings just need to start to rebuild. Moral of the story. And that was the last game we were going to talk about. But now, let's go into my playoff seeding predictions. Now, there's a lot that goes into this, and I should have probably done more work on this than I did, but I still feel comfortable enough to put it out there. Maybe Twitter will see a different version because I know more people on Twitter will see it than they will listen to the podcast or watch on YouTube. But let's talk about that. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff. It helps out a lot. If you're listening on Spotify, share it with a friend. Let's talk about playoff seedings. Hold up. Got to click it. Okay. So on the left, if you're watching on YouTube, is the current playoff picture. And if you're listening on Spotify, I'll read it out to you. The current 1 seed, let's start with the AFC, is the Titans. And I'm going to just go down the list. 1 seed is Titans. 2 is the Ravens. 3 is the Chargers. 4 is the Bills. 5 is the Pats. 6 is the Steelers. 7 is the Raiders. How do I want to do this? Very poor job on my end. I'm sorry, everybody. Okay, let's just talk about where they are now and where I think it's going. So we'll start with the AFC. Do the Titans remain the 1 seed is a question I'm going to lead with. I'd say yes, because the Titans currently have the 32nd ranked strength of schedule. Their team's opponent win percentage is .353, and opponent record is 24-44, which is great because now the Titans have enough wiggle room to figure out what they're good at and figure out how to win these games, right? The next closest player or next closest team to them is the Ravens. Other than that, they have 2 wins on everybody else, so they can afford a loss. And the Ravens, conversely, have the 6th hardest schedule. So I think that the Titans have enough of a cushion that they'll stay the 1 seed. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I think the Titans have a good enough cushion of where they'll stay the 1 seed. I just don't believe in them at all, man. I really don't. And this is something I could definitely be wrong on based off of the Rams win, but I don't know. It's going to be tough. I'm telling you, it's going to be tough for them to stay the 1 seed, or because let's say they drop to the 2 seed, right? Then, right now, they'd be playing the Patriots. My prediction, we'll get to the predictions, but they'll have, if they drop to the 2 seed, the AFC is so competitive, they could definitely bounced in the first round. So, Titans have room to work. Well, I'm going to leave it at that. The 2 seed is the Ravens. I think the Ravens have a game ahead. They're 6-2 right now, ahead of everybody. And they have the 6th hardest strength of schedule. And luckily, I have the Ravens schedule pulled up. But why I said that is because I want to see how many divisional games they have left. So they have 5 out of their next... Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 5 out of their next 9 are divisional games. Which... they got to win those divisional games because then they're going to have teams like the Browns on their heels. And I just realized I made a mistake in the graphic. They're going to have the Browns on their heels. And they got to split with the Browns. At least beat them at home. I think they could beat them twice, to be honest with you. But they need to definitely split with the Browns in order to stay on top. I think they're going to beat the Bengals next time they play. The Bengals are in shambles right now, so strike while the iron's hot. The 3 seed right now is Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers have the 24th easiest schedule, or the 24th hardest schedule. I think that the Chargers are definitely going to keep they're going to take a commanding lead over this division. I think the Broncos are sneakily competitive. If you've listened to this channel, you know that I've been I was a believer in the Broncos when they were 3-0. And I don't think that my belief was misplaced, especially after that win over the Cowboys. It really shows how good that how good that defense is. But I think that being with the Chiefs having the hardest strength of schedule, I think they're a non-factor. Trying to look through this list. The Raiders have the 8th hardest schedule, who are currently the 7th seed. And who's the other team in that division? The Broncos. Broncos have the 23rd hardest schedule. So the Broncos might sneak up and claim the 2 spot in this division. But I don't think it's going to be enough to dethrone the Chargers. I think the Chargers are really good. I think, they've had some hiccups, but with how the rest of the season is going to play out, I like the Chargers a lot. 4 seed right now is the Bills. The Bills have the 20th hardest strength of schedule. But here's the thing with the Bills, and why I kind of think that is a little bit deceiving, is they just lost to the Jaguars. And I think if the Jaguars were on this schedule, I'm looking at the strength of schedule through week 9, that ranking would have been lower, right? Because the Jaguars are a 2-7 team. Or 2-6 team. I don't know if they've had their bye yet. The Bills are struggling, man. The offensive line has not looked good. The run game is non-existent. If anybody's going to take a running back in the first round, it will be the Bills. I don't think they will, and I would not advise for that. But they need to figure out. So they need to either sign someone or do something and patch up that run game. Because my thing is, if you're going to win in the playoffs, you need to be able to run the ball. And that's kind of the Cardinals' saving grace, in my opinion. They can definitely run the ball with James Conner, who's someone I was horribly wrong about this season. So take that to the bank. But I think the Bills Josh Allen needs to play better. Stephon Diggs needs to play better. And they need the guys that made Josh Allen a MVP frontrunner to show up, because they haven't. Stephon Diggs hasn't been nothing compared to last season. Josh Allen hasn't really been anything compared to last season. I think they're missing the key ingredient that made them so good. And then I have the Raiders as the 7th seed right now. The Raiders are 5-2? Question mark. I got it somewhere. Hold on. Let me flip through my sticky notes. The Raiders are 5-3. I don't know, man. The Raiders, they got a lot of turmoil, and turmoil doesn't post well in come playoffs. But the Raiders have the 8th hardest schedule, right? So it's tough because we're going to talk about my predictions in a second, but I think the Raiders are talented enough and Derek Carr is playing well enough for them to maintain a hold on that 7th seed. But I think the 7th seed is so volatile in the AFC. Same with the 6th seed, just because there's so many teams that are 5 wins. The Broncos are 5 wins. That's all I got off the top of my head. I have it right here. Hold up. The Browns are 5 wins. The Bengals are 5 wins. The Colts are 4 wins. That's the closest it gets. Everybody else is 2 wins. But I don't know, man. The 7th seed, 6th seed are definitely deceiving. Let's talk about my predictions for the AFC. I think the Titans will stay the 1 seed just because of the strength of schedule, and they seem to be able to make it work. And that Rams win was absolutely gigantic for their 1 seed. The Ravens stay at 2. I think the Ravens are going to continue to just beat teams. They do have a tough schedule, but I think they're well coached. They're a very good team off of a bye, which they've already had, I think. And they've been playing very well off the bye. So I'm gonna keep the Ravens there. Devonta Freeman looks great. Le'Veon Bell looks great. And Rashad Bateman's getting better every week. So the Ravens are getting better. So crazy, man. That, to me, blows my mind that the Ravens just keep getting better. The 3 seed, I'm going to keep the Chargers. And then this is where it gets a little bit crazy. I got the Patriots. Well, wait, we skipped the 5 and 6 seed. But we can talk about them here. Patriots, I have them moving from the 5 seed to the 4 seed. The Patriots are like 2 bounces away from being 7 and 2. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. I think if the Bills keep struggling, and especially with how well the Patriots are playing, if Mac Jones just manages the game against the Bills and cleans up the rest of the divisional games, I think that one win over the Bills will be enough to push them over them. Because the Patriots right now have the 15th toughest schedule, and the Bills have the 20th. It'll be close. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. If you've listened to this channel, I'm a believer in the Patriots. I always will be as long as Bill Belichick's there. Offensive line is great. Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, Brandon Bolden, all fantastic. If they get Odell Beckham, man, they are winning. They might move to the 3 seed just with how the records pan out. I swear, dude. But that'll come out probably this week. I was hoping it would come out today, but it didn't at the time we're recording. Any updates on my phone? Nope. Odell Beckham is still a free agent, which does affect this actually a lot more than I thought. Because he could go to the Packers, he could go to the Chiefs, he could go to the Saints, which would really affect that. But I have the the Patriots as the 4 seed. I have the Bills as the 5 seed. I think just that loss is huge for them to lose to the Jaguars. And I think they're going to struggle against the Patriots, and they're tied right now. They have the same record. I think that it's going to come down to the divisional games possibly, and that might be able to push the Patriots over. So the 5 seed I have the Bills, 6 seed I have the Colts over the Steelers. The Steelers have the 7th hardest schedule moving forward. They should have just lost to the Bears. I don't know what it is, man. The Steelers must have so much money going to refs somewhere under the table. I swear, because if you even think back to the Seahawks-Steelers Super Bowl, that actually is, I think that is in the history books as the worst officiated game of all time. And it actually started the whole conversation of, is the NFL rigged? Because the theory is that the league just wanted Jerome Bettis to get a Super Bowl just because of his story. But I think the Colts move up to the 6th seed. And then here's where it gets kind of fuzzy for me. I kept the Raiders, which is kind of stupid. I don't think I'm actually going to keep the Raiders. Might update it live like we do a bunch on this channel. I just think that the Bengals could take that seed. More likely the Browns could take that seed. The Broncos might even be able to sneak in there. And if the Chiefs land Odell, they definitely can sneak in there. But right now I have it as the Raiders. I guess we could put 7 as Phil because it really is anybody's. Let's see. Who has the easiest schedule out of those guys? The Chiefs have the hardest schedule. The Bengals have the 2nd hardest schedule. And or the Broncos. Broncos have the 23rd hardest schedule. So it really is anybody's game for the 7 seed. So that's my AFC predictions. To run down that list, it's the Titans at 1, Baltimore at 2, Chargers at 3, Patriots at 4, Bills at 5, Colts at 6, and I guess the Raiders at 7. I think that'll probably be the Browns, if I'm being completely honest. So let's talk about the NFC. So the current seeding. Oh, I should have moved my head. I didn't even think about that. I'm so sorry. Current seeding is the Cardinals at 1, Packers at 2, Bucks at 3, Cowboys at 4, Rams at 5, Saints at 6, Falcons at 7. So here's my thing, as we say a lot on this channel. Here's my thing. Let me just read off to you. So looking at the NFC, here are the current, in my opinion, locks. Cardinals, Rams, Packers, Bucks, Cowboys. And then the Saints are the only team with 5 wins. Everybody else has more than 5 wins. Everybody above the Saints has more than 5 wins. Everybody below the Saints has 3 or less wins, right? And like I said at the beginning of this episode, when we were talking about the Titans, you don't know what to expect when you have especially a different quarterback. We saw Jalen Hurts upset the Saints last year. Apparently, Tom Brady can't play against the Saints, and the Saints have a huge question mark still at quarterback. Is it going to be Taysom? Is it going to be Trevor Siemian? So, that's all I'm going to say about the Saints. Let's go through. We'll get to them. Let's go through this in order. The Cardinals, to me, they're going to keep the 1 seed. Let me see their strength of schedule real quick. Just double check. I think they have a really easy strength of schedule. Yeah, they have the 27th hardest schedule. So they're pretty much a lock to stay the 1 seed unless Kyler Murray dies. But even it's still, we just saw Colt McCoy complete 82% of his passes. The Packers are the 2 seed, who have the 26th hardest schedule. And then the Bucks are the 3 seed with the 29th hardest schedule. These two, it's really anybody's ball game. I think the Buccaneers, let's talk about the Packers. Current situation with the Packers is they almost just beat the Chiefs with Jordan Love, and they have one of the best emerging head coaches in the NFL, Matt LaFleur. I think Matt LaFleur has a good amount of playoff experience. This is going to be very valuable come playoff time. The Bucks are getting healthier as the season progresses. They have a lot of people injured that they will have back. I think they're going to lock. Both of these teams are locks to win their divisions. Then we have the Cowboys, who are also a lock to win their division and have the best coordinators in the NFL with Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn. And then the 5 seed is the Rams. And the Rams could usurp the Cardinals, but the Rams have the 9th hardest strength of schedule, so I don't see it happening, especially after that Titans loss. That was huge for them because if they had won that game, they would still be the 5 seed because of the divisional split, but they would have had they still have a chance to tie it. But now they're a game behind. So I think the Rams are still in a very good spot come playoff times. They have one of the best head coaches in the NFL. The Saints, I think, are going to fall. Just being that even though Sean Payton is that good of a head coach, I just don't think they have the ammo with Michael Thomas not coming back. And I don't know what to expect for Trevor Siemian through the end of the year, and I don't know what to expect from Taysom Hill if he comes in. And the Falcons, who are crazily the 7th seed, I think that is momentarily. I think it's just going to be the 7th seed will flip week to week in the NFC. I promise you that. But let's talk about my predictions. I'm going to keep the Cardinals at the 1 seed because of the easiness of their schedule. The Bucks I have leaping over the Packers to the 2 seed because I think the Bucks are good enough to keep winning games, and I think they have a better chance of winning games when everybody comes back versus the Packers, who, although are fantastic and did give the Cardinals their only loss without Devontae Adams, I think that they are a team more likely to lose a game than the Bucks are down the stretch. So the 2 and 3 seed definitely interchangeable, but I'm going to put the Bucks at number 2, which actually, to be honest with you, wait, do I have this wrong? I do have this wrong. I'm an idiot. So I will update this picture for Instagram and Twitter, but that's kind of neither here nor there. So I'll talk through it live. So to update it, the AFC, what the matchups look like and what they would look like. The current matchups are Titans with the bye, the Ravens against the Raiders, who did beat the Ravens already, the Chargers against the Steelers, and then the Bills against the Patriots. What it would look like would be the Titans with the bye still, the Ravens still against the Raiders or Browns or Bengals or Broncos, and then the Chargers against the Colts, which would be a very bad matchup for the Chargers, and then the Patriots against the Bills still. But so the current matchup for the NFC would be the Cardinals with the bye, Packers against the Falcons, Bucks against the the Saints, and then the Cowboys against the Rams. What it would look like with my predictions, so Cardinals 1 seed, Bucks 2 seed, the Packers a 3 seed, Cowboys still at the 4 seed. I think that their schedule is, where are they at on here? They have the 20th easiest schedule down the stretch. I think they did, that loss to the Broncos was they were going into that really underestimating the Broncos. I don't think that really says anything about the Cowboys team. I think Dak had a bad night. It was his first game back from injury. But then I have at the 5 seed, who would be playing the Cowboys, the Rams, which would be a very good game. And then the 6th seed, I have the Seattle Seahawks. And why I have the Seattle Seahawks there is because of how the NFC is shaping up right now with how many 3-win teams there are. With Russell Wilson coming back now, and thank God the Seahawks have only dropped, I think, 1 game without him, 1 or 2 games without him. He definitely could bring this team back into playoff contention, 100%. So I have the Seahawks at 6. Their defense is a mess. If it wasn't the Seahawks, it probably would be the Saints as a 6 seed, but I just don't have any confidence in the Saints. And then at the 7 seed, I had to put them in here because of my preseason take, but I have the New York Giants. And I'll defend this take because over the past 2 weeks, we are seeing the Giants' defense from 2020, the 9th best defense, come back to form. And they have been amazing the past 2 weeks. They kept the Chiefs to 1.5 yards in the red zone, and they just beat the Raiders. Absolutely suffocated the Raiders. They had forced 3 turnovers. The Giants have a very good turnover differential, which is very good. Daniel Jones is not turning the ball over, and they're taking the ball away, which is fantastic. But here's the thing with the Giants, and why I think too many people are sleeping on them. For the past 6 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, they have been missing their best offensive lineman, Andrew Thomas. And when Andrew Thomas was playing, Daniel Jones was grading out every single week, according to PFF, as a top 10 quarterback. They lost Saquon Barkley, additionally, week 3 against the Cowboys. Now, or week 4 against the Cowboys. So for 5 weeks. They are going into a bye this week. They have Saquon Barkley coming back, Kenny Golladay coming back, Kadarius Toney's there, and Andrew Thomas will be back. This team could make a run. They have the 27th easiest schedule over the next few weeks. That has 4 games against the Eagles, 1 against the Washington, and then I just want to see I should have pulled this up, but let me see. Giants schedule. They have the Bucks off the bye, who they almost upset last year. The Bucks are also very vulnerable right now. The Eagles, the Dolphins, the Chargers. So they probably lose against the Chargers, but I would say they could probably lose against the Bucks. So let's talk about best realistic case scenario for the Giants. Lose to the Bucks, beat the Eagles, beat the Dolphins, lose to the Chargers, lose to the Cowboys. So that puts them at 2-3. Beat the Eagles, beat the Bears, beat Washington. That puts them at 5-3, which would be enough to give them an 8-win team. And with how the NFC is right now, that could be enough to make the wild card. I think they could potentially beat this Buccaneers team. I think they could potentially beat the Chargers, being that Washington almost beat the Chargers, and the Eagles almost beat the Chargers. The Chargers are vulnerable. And divisional games are always crazy. They could possibly beat the Cowboys. And if they flip one of those games, they are a 9-win team. So, with all that being said, this is my playoff predictions. To go through the NFC one last time, it'll be the Cardinals at 1, Bucks at 2, Packers at 3, Dallas at 4, Rams at 5, Seattle at 6, Giants at 7. But that is going to wrap up this episode of the podcast. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you're listening on Spotify, if you're listening on YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube, thank you for watching. Check out our mock draft. We have another one coming out this Monday. Trying to think of anything else. Power rankings will be out today at some point. I'm working on that. I was working on that before this morning and then before this. The power rankings will be out today. I'm probably going to put a video out for the power rankings. It won't be nearly as long as they usually are. I want to cut those down to like 20 minutes. It's going to be a challenge. But So I just go on tangents. But yeah, check out the channel's coming back to life. We took it like a 2-week hiatus as I was transitioning jobs. But yeah, man, thanks for watching. Thank you for listening. And check out our content. Check out our mock drafts. Check out our other stuff. But with all that being said, I'll catch you in the next video or podcast. Peace!